Welcome to the Talking Archive. I'm Josh Jacobs, and this podcast goes into the archive back to 1998. Now, at the time, I was a student at Cal State Los Angeles and doing a report on communication between boss and DJ and vice versa. And Gary was very generous with his time to give me a 15-minute talk about that, as well as share some wonderful stories. Gary, how important is it for you, as far as a DJ is concerned, to have communication? You talked about empathy that the program director has for the DJ. Can you go in a little more detail about the type of empathy that's needed in order to have a successful communication or interactive communication between a DJ as well as his staff as DJ, or rather his program director and stuff?
Well, I think, Josh, most program directors do have a lot of empathy with air personalities, because most program directors were air personalities or still are. Sometimes they do it in combination. So they understand the problems of, deadlines and everything else and getting a show done. I remember years ago when I was at KFWB, which was the #1 radio station, rock and roll station in the world back in the early 60s, late 50s. And there was one thing that got to me, which is just a sidelight, but we had a red phone, and I think most program directors enjoy having red phones because they say, we've got to get this on right now and answer the phone as quickly as you can. But it is disconcerting sometime to an on-the-air personality, because you're ready for a punchline, you're ready to do something with a rhythm to it, and if the red phone and the red light goes on at that time, you say, well. So maybe you've goofed up your punchline or whatever it might be. So Jim Hawthorne, who's still a very good friend of mine, was program director of KFWB, and Chuck Blower was our national program director. And I had an old trolley bell, which was given to me by Jim Hawthorne from a trolley in San Francisco, and that would be my time flogging machine. Well, according to the KFWB time flogging machine, it's now 10:57 or what? No, it wouldn't have been 10:57 because I was on 6 to 9 in the morning. Say it's 10 minutes till 7 o'clock KFWB time. And at that point, the red light went on exactly as I did it. And I'm starting to go into the next planned bit, but it was disconcerting for me. So I answer the phone, and Jim says, Gary, I think your time flogging machine is too loud next to the microphone. Maybe we should just tone it down a little bit. Yeah, okay. Jim, please don't phone me right as I've just finished, because I'm not quite through yet. Wait till the record gets on or whatever. And we had laughs about it and so on. So it happened a couple more times during the same period of time. And in a fit of anger, size 42, that's the fit of anger that I wear, I just ripped the little trolley bell off the wall that we had, and I put it next to Jim's door, and I said, please don't phone me while I'm in the middle of a bit. Now, of course, there was a demonstrative overtone to it, and he was a good friend of mine, and he totally understood. But sometimes you have to stop and think, as a program, and I've been a program director, and I've been a vice president of radio stations and an owner of radio stations. But I do have much empathy with on-air personalities, only from the standpoint is you have to have something that doesn't break their concentration for the whole show. There were many program directors early on, when rock and roll just got underway. Hey, come on, cut that out right now, or you're through. Those kind of things. Well, yeah. I don't know what that gains for you. So let the DJ be happy and let them continue the flow of action along those lines. But I think most program directors understand that today, and I think that they do believe in a communication or a juxtaposition of thoughts, and a dictionary containing the word juxtaposition, so we know exactly what that means.
Now, when you, sometimes there are PDs that are absolutely impossible to work with. There is a communication gap, whether it be a power struggle between the DJ and the program director, or the program director maybe has a power struggle where he wants to have some type of control over the DJ. What do you do in situations where that does occur?
Well, sometimes it will occur when the program director is also a disc jockey, because it's a strange juggling position that you're in. I think a true great program director, though, weighs everything and tries not to let any ego get involved in it, because that's what a program director has to do. They try to juggle the talents, and if you're in radio, everybody has an ego of some kind, or they wouldn't even be in radio. Most people say, "Oh, I'm sorry, let me see," and be like Wallace Wimple.
Well, let me see. I guess I better play this next record again. Hello.
So it is never that simple, because what makes a disc jockey great is probably partly ego. And that's true of every major personality in every city in the United States. So the PD just must remember the balance. That's what they're trying to do, trying to balance the formatics of a show, the personality of the disc jockey, whether it's a man or a woman, and making it best for the whole station, because it has to be a team effort so that the whole station wins. I get along with most program directors. There are very few that I haven't over the years, because you meet the personality and the PD on a person-to-person basis, mano a mano, and it's very important.
With the program directors who you've not gotten along with, how did you deal with those types of people? Those who just were absolutely impossible to work with. I mean, I've heard lots of horror stories before in my lives about other PDs. What do you do exactly? Do you just quit, or do you hang in there until the program director either gets fired or you get fired?
Well, I guess considering that most people don't stay at a station much more than a year and a half, you probably could just wait it out. But no, you try. If you don't get along with someone, this is true of every business, whether you're selling pizza or whether you're at a bird store, it doesn't make any difference what it is. You really should make a concerted effort to get along with that person. Find out what his or her likes or dislikes are. You know, if they like baseball, talk baseball with them. If they like to travel, talk travel with them. If they like Greenpeace, whatever it is, don't wear dolphin skin shorts while you're going in to talk about Greenpeace. But get on the side of the person by just finding out more about them. And I think the closer the communication is, the better it is. And I don't think that anybody wants to dislike somebody else. But many times when you get started, say a new program director comes into a conglomerate chain, and you haven't had a chance to know him, or he, or if it's a woman, if it's a man, each one has different personalities. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of things, kind of situation many times. So therefore you owe it to yourself as an individual, as a personality, to get to know that person better. And the better you know them, the more friendly it becomes. And it's easier to ask someone who's a friend than it is someone who's adversarial.
Wow, that's a good answer, because I never really thought about that before. This just something you never really learn in broadcasting school.
No, you don't. They don't teach you that real well. Say, what if there's a schmuck there?
Yeah.
But and you may be the schmuck yourself. I mean, that doesn't mean that you're always right. But if you come in with preconceived notions, you must give everybody a chance, and then to have a workout period of, say, the first 3 or 4 weeks where you just get to know a new person. Sometimes it never happens, but at least you've tried, and that's the key to it.
Exactly. Now, when you have a DJ team itself, how important is teamwork to the success of the station? As far as obviously you got to communicate with other DJs and stuff like that. Having listened to some old air checks, including some of yours from KFWB, where you mentioned other DJs, as well as like Larry Lujak on CFL mentioning Tom Murphy in a joking way about not being potty trained.
Well, cross-promotion is very important on a station, I think, and usually it's the morning man's job to cross-promote. That's the key to most morning shows, where you promote what's coming up for the rest of the day. And cross-promotion is a definite given when you're doing, especially rock and roll, whether it be oldies or new or whatever it might be. But every radio format should have cross-promotion. I don't know if that was the question, Josh, or not.
Yeah, I guess, cross-promotion,
also, actually that wasn't, but that's okay,
Yeah.
because that really actually
Okay.
shed some light
You were
there.
asking about a two-man morning team or a
Well, I guess
man-woman team? Or?
Just communication between DJs themselves and stuff like that. How important is communication between the other DJs? What type of role does that play in the success of a radio station?
But you're talking specifically about a morning show, right?
Well,
Or-
it could be a morning show, or it could be
or
just
the
whole-
communication of, say, the afternoon man with the morning man, or the
Exactly.
evening man with the midday guy.
Mhm.
Well, I think that there is a communication, but you may not be close to them. The only time you see them is at a program director's meeting, probably.
Yeah.
And but you should pre-plan of what you're doing. Specifically, if you're doing a two-person or three-person zoo show, there has to be preparation. Well, I learned a lot about radio from the Gordon McClendon stations, and one of the top radio chains of all time. Rock and roll went very far because not only did they play the top hits, but they also let you entertain. That was the key. They wanted entertainers as performers, not just saying it's 400 degrees now and here's Brenda Lee. I mean, there has to be more to it than that. At least that was the theory of McClendon, who proved to be number one in every city where he was. And so that was my learning. That was sort of radio university for me. And Gordon taught us, thanks to Don Keyes, who was the national program director, that you devoted 1 hour off the air for every hour on the air when you're preparing. So if you take a look at your music list, you find everything there is to know about, say, Marty Robbins. How many different jokes, if you want to do it? How many different things go into El Paso, if that's the hit you're talking about? Find something out about El Paso. What's the current population of El Paso? What's fun about El Paso? So you can talk about something and you don't say the same thing each time about a song hit. Or find out about the personality, what goes into it, current news, topicalities that go into it, much as though several friends of mine are writers for The Tonight Show, and they scam the paper. They just skim over everything every day to see what's topical and what people are talking about. Then they'll do jokes about it. And there's nothing to say that a disc jockey or an air personality can't do the same thing, or a talk show personality.
How open are program directors to DJ ideas in your experience in radio? Plus, how open are they today? Are they more or less open as they were back then, or are they pretty much closed to a DJ's idea?
No, I don't think so. I think, for example, they enjoy doing things. Rick Dees does a lot of different idea shows, you know. Let's go do it from Hawaii. It's an all-surfing show, for example. And those things work very, very well with every personality. Howard Stern, Don Imus, whatever it might be. It may be thematic, and I think if they go into the program director, most of them have individual producers, and in some cases the producer may pitch it to the program director rather than the air talent himself, who may be too busy out making money in television or something else, or doing videos or movies or whatever it might be. But the person-to-person values can't ever be underestimated, because that's how you communicate. And if it's just a phone call, you don't have to be with the person to get an idea through. Just chat with them. An important impromptu chat is sometimes the best thing. Because if you don't do that, there's a closed mind that happens, and you'll say, I think that guy doesn't like me, or whatever it might be. So it clears the air, for one thing. And that constant communication is the best way to work.
Boy, thank you for the interview, Gary.
Oh, you're welcome, Josh. I wish I had more time, but as you know, we're trying to rob the Krellman and Zordley Bank at 2 this afternoon. The stocking masks, they don't make stocking masks like they used to in the old days.
They definitely don't.
Oh, no. And, you know, the hold-up notes, nobody knows how to write anymore. It's like Woody Allen in the movie. This is a stick-up. I have a gub in this bag. It just, all the typographical errors. I don't think should ever go into that. And, don't visit any nation where strip searching is the national pastime either. That's not a good place to go. Well, my pleasure for being here, Josh. I better go zoom into the next room and record part of my show right
Sounds
now.
good, Gary.
I'm going to do it in English today, and I hope you enjoy it.
Oh, we'll do.
Okay.
What other languages have you broadcasted in?
Esperanto, which is a language that never made it somehow. And I could say I want your water buffalo in Esperanto, but nobody understood me, so I never got any water buffaloes, which is my big complaint in life.
Well, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
And that was our interview with Gary Owens going back to 1998. And I actually met Gary 3 years earlier. World famous Tom Murphy invited me to the signing of the second edition of the Encyclopedia of TV Game Shows. Tom is good friends with David Schwartz, one of the co-authors of that book, along with Fred Westbrook as well as Steve Ryan. And I knew a lot of people were going to be there, and I wasn't sure who. I remember that night getting autographs from Jack Nars, Art James, Peter Marshall, Wink Martindale, Peter Tamarkin, Ralph Story, Bern Bennett, as well as Ron Maestri. Now, the interesting thing was the first person Tom introduced me to that night, in addition to Randy West, the first person was Gary Owens. And Gary was just so friendly. And about 6 months later, I got hired part-time to work at the Music of Your Life radio network, where Gary was the morning man, along with Wink Martindale in middays. He also had Chuck Southcott, Pete Smith, Johnny Magnus, the host who loves you most, as well as Scott O'Neill. And Gary and Johnny did their tracks here in our studios in Glendale. So I got to see them every week. And one time while I was working for the Music of Your Life, Gary was doing his tracks. I said, "Hey, Gary, I'm having lunch with world famous Tom Murphy." He's like, "Well, tell Tom I said hi." And I said, "Definitely, I will." And so I had lunch with Tom as well as Margaret Carey, the Disney legend, whom they modeled Tinkerbell after. And about 45 minutes into lunch, we heard the intercom that said, "Tom Murphy, telephone call, front desk." And it was Gary Owens. And Gary came on by, and for the next hour or two, Gary shared these wonderful conversations. The one that really stood out to me was I think it was at KEWB Channel 91 in San Francisco. And he said to his news reporter, "Give me a name of a bank. Make up a name of a bank that sounds like a real bank name, but it's not." And so the guy gave Gary the name. And so Gary gets on the air and says, "All right, listen up, everybody. Listen very carefully. Go to the hometown bank. And when you go to the teller, tell them I listen to KEWB Channel 91. Now stick them up. And when you do, they'll give you some money." Well, it turns out that actually was the name of a regional bank in the Bay Area. And he said some 9-year-old boy goes up to the teller and says, "I listen to KEWB Channel 91. Now stick them up." And Gary did have to apologize, but he didn't get let go. But it was just a wonderful afternoon I'll never forget. Sadly, we lost Gary back in 2015, but he was one of the nicest people I ever met. And I recommend his book, How to Make $1 Million with Your Voice or Lose Your Tonsils Trying. Until next time, this is Josh Jacobs. Keep your mind on the things above, and as you hit that open road, don't be a slow-down spectator.